Start. Welcome, fellow Toastmasters and guests. This meeting of online presenters, it has begun. Now, guests, please note that in order to be a member of our club, you must be a current or former active member of Toastmasters International and have completed at least 6 Toastmasters official speeches, or alternately, if you have substantial relevant presentation experience, you may apply for membership after demonstrating your ability in a 2 to 3 minute speech delivered during one of our club meetings. All requests for membership are subject to approval by the members of our club. Now, we know that everybody has renamed because we're going to have a ghoulish meeting. Keep in mind, though, that we have members and guests from many countries throughout the world. Thus, as a professional organization, we ask that you please be aware of language and word usage that may be considered offensive or otherwise insensitive due to cultural differences. Please note that we will be recording the meeting and your video or audio contribution may be used for club marketing purposes. Also, remain muted when you're not speaking. No, he's here. He is here, not from the other side of the world, somewhere on a cruise ship, having a already happy Halloween. Please help me welcome our president, Graham Kant.
Thank you, Madam Sergeant at Arms. My name is Graham Cairns, and I am currently on a cruise ship on the other side of the world, coming from you from the spookiest place of all, a cruise ship which has just reported a significant increase in the number of cases of norovirus, that is gastric virus, like gastro. No, we don't want this. So everybody is very carefully washing their hands and using all the sanitizers and all those things. But yeah, I am proof that no matter how bad your Monday is, it ends because I am already in Tuesday. It is already Halloween here, hence the really Halloween hat. And it is I am on holidays on a cruise ship, hence the cruise ship T-shirt or shirt. So, hello everybody. I hope it's going to be a fun meeting tonight, and I will now hand control of the meeting to the spookiest of all. Here she is, your Toastmaster of the day, Kim Leeming.
Thank you so much, Graham, Carnes, fellow Toastmasters, and dear guests. I'd like to welcome everyone to tonight's online presenters meeting. Before we begin the traditional portion of our meeting, on behalf of Online Presenters Toastmasters, it is my duty and privilege to induct Gregory Bundschoks into our club. This is an important occasion for both Gregory, and let me get to the right screen here, and for our club. As experienced speakers and Toastmasters, this individual will enrich us as we strive to enrich him in a spirit of sharing and enjoyment. Together, we expand our effectiveness as... Did not change my screen. Dynamic leaders, presenters, and communicators. Gregory, please wait until I call on you to affirm your commitment to the Toastmaster promise. And let's go to the next slide. In the presence of fellow online presenters, do you pledge to attend meetings regularly and prepare for each assignment, to actively participate in club activities, to speak better than I do, to evaluate others in a positive, constructive manner, to build open, friendly relationships with our fellow members, and to bring other new members into the club so that they can gain the benefits of Toastmasters as well? Gregory, please unmute and say, I do.
I do.
To the current members of Online Presenters, I remind you of your pledge to support Gregory in his quest for self-development, to provide him with positive, helpful evaluations, to maintain a friendly, supportive atmosphere, and to make his Online Presenters Toastmasters membership a rewarding and fulfilling experience. Congratulations, Gregory, and welcome to Online Presenters. Attendees, please unmute and give Gregory a big round of applause.
Welcome.
Welcome,
Gregory.
Welcome, Gregory.
Everyone.
Welcome. Welcome to the Looney Bin.
You are going to make a wonderful addition to our club. So now on to the meeting. Halloween celebrations is the theme for tonight's meeting. These sometimes ghoulish celebrations take place all around the world. Halloween dates back centuries when it was widely celebrated in Celtic cultures. In fact, celebrations have been taking place since the 9th century. This is a Halloween party trivia fact. The word Halloween wasn't used until the year 1745. Now you'll be the life of every party you go to. Tonight, we're going to take a look at how different countries celebrate this ghoulish holiday. This dancing monster graphic brings up a question. What kind of monster loves to disco? Do you give up? The answer is the boogeyman. Speaking of monsters, are any Halloween monsters good at math? No, not unless you count Dracula. Let's kick off the talk about Halloween celebrations with Mexico. In Mexico, the Day of the Dead is celebrated instead of Halloween and occurs around the same time. It lasts for 3 days, starting on October 31st. The skull is the main symbol for this holiday. During the celebrations, people decorate themselves and special lanterns with pictures of their lost loved ones, flowers, sweets, candles, and of course, skulls. They then gather in graveyards to celebrate and honor people who have died. Question: why is a cemetery a great place to write a story or a Toastmasters speech? The answer is because there are so many plots there. In England, people often dress up in costumes and go trick-or-treating. This tradition comes from the ancient Celtics, who would leave gifts for the spirits and fairies to stop them from playing tricks and or tampering with people's homes. Oh, speaking of evil spirits, when a genre of music, what genre of music does a mummy like best? The answer is rap. Why don't mummies take time off? They're afraid to unwind. So Halloween was imported to Sweden from the US in the 1990s. Many of, that was the last slide. Many of fun American traditions came with it. Oh no, this is right. It's known as Alla Helgens Dag in Sweden. It is becoming very common for Swedish children to don costumes, have Halloween parties, and to carve pumpkins. This brings up some more questions. Why was the jack-o'-lantern afraid to cross the road? Well, he had no guts. Second question, how do you fix a broken jack-o'-lantern? And the answer is with a pumpkin patch. Are you ready for tonight's meeting? Let's get started. Our meeting consists of 4 main parts. Rather than tip of the day, the first part of tonight's meeting was the new member induction ceremony for Gregory. Yay! And again, congratulations, Gregory. The second part of the meeting is the prepared speeches. This is where people present a speech from a particular project for their chosen Toastmasters pathway. The third part is the table topics. This is the impromptu speaking part of the meeting where we practice speaking off the cuff. Often these impromptu speeches, I forgot my costume, give us hilarious results. And the final part of the meeting is the evaluation portion of the meeting. Each speaker will receive an evaluation. This is a great opportunity for all of us to learn from the feedback each speaker receives. After these valuable evaluations, the general evaluator will also give us an overall meeting evaluation. It may seem like the Toastmaster today runs the show, but it's actually a team effort. I will now introduce tonight's volunteers. They will each have 1 minute to describe their role for tonight's meeting. Our timer for tonight is Karthika. Karthika, would you please tell us your duties as timer?
Definitely, Toastmaster Kimling. Today I'll be the timer for today's meeting. There are three sections in our meeting. One is the prepared speech, table topics, and evaluators timing. During the prepared speech, the timing goes like 5 to 7 minutes. After 5 minutes, I'll glow green. After 6 minutes, I'll glow yellow. And after 7 minutes, there will be a red light. For table topics, the timing is going to be 1 to 2 minutes. After 1, green. After 1.30 seconds, it's going to be yellow. And after 2 minutes, you will have a red light. For evaluators, the evaluation timing is 2 minutes max, and you will be taking 2.30 seconds on a whole. So this is about the timing that we are going to practice for our Toastmasters meeting. Over to you, Kimberly.
Thank you, Karthika. Next up is our counter. The counter for tonight is Carolina Ramirez. Carolina, could you please describe your duties tonight?
Hello, Kim. Yes, sure. My duties as an accountant is to count the awkward sounds, the grants, the gratitude words that you have when you're talking. And at the end of the meeting, I will give you my report. Back to you, Lim.
Thank you. Next up is our grammarian for tonight, and that is Andy Byrne. Andy, could you please describe your duties for tonight, as well as to tell us about the word of the day?
Thank you very much, Toastmaster of the Day, Liming. The role of the grammarian is to listen carefully to everything that's said. When we have a word of the day, I listen for who was using it and mark down that information and give a report at the end of the meeting. During the course of the meeting, anybody speaking is subject to being listened to carefully and feedback provided for anything that is said that is amiss. Back to you.
Thank you, Andy. Tonight's watcher is Joni Laidlaw. Joni, could you please describe your duties tonight as watcher?
Is it spooky? Is it scary? Is it something that goes bump in the night? Is there a ghoul behind you? Nope, it's just me watching you, and I'll give the report when called upon to do so. Back to you, Kim.
Thank you, Joni. Spooky. Next up, I want to go back to the grammarian, to Andy's comments. So back to the word of the day, which is ghoulish.
Ghoulish, yes.
Quick question relating to that word of the day. What is a ghoul's favorite drink? The answer is anything with booze. Ha ha ha. Okay, next up is the chat monitor. Tonight's chat monitor is Gregory Bundschoks. Gregory, could you please describe your role?
Fellow Toastmasters, as a role of chat monitor, it will be my duty to look at the chat messages and relay any of the poignant or basically the cool stuff that we end up chatting about in the chat box, and I'll share with you at the end of the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Gregory. Our vote counter for tonight is Carolina Ramirez. Carolina, could you please talk about this other role for tonight as well?
Kim, I think the vote counter is Andre today.
Oh, it is?
I can be the, yes, I think so.
Oh, I thought you said it was you. Okay, Andre Smolenko. Andre, could you please tell us about your duties as vote counter tonight?
Well, certainly, Kim, I can be vote counter as well. My role for tonight is just counting votes. What I'm going to do, I'm going to use a specially prepared tool that is on our website. I'll send the link in the chat box, and you could vote for your favorite speaker, for your favorite table topic and evaluator. So please look out in the chat box. I will post a link.
Thank you, Andre. This brings us to the prepared speeches portion of the meeting. Our first speaker for tonight is Gregory. I know I'm butchering this every time I say it, so I'm sorry. Bundschoks. Gregory's speech is titled, "What Does Food Security Really Mean?" This is from Presentation Mastery, Level 1, Mastering Fundamentals. This will be Gregory's first speech here at Online Presenters and the first speech from his pathway. This speech will delve into the fundamentals of Greg's work with what he hopes is a thought-provoking look into our relationship with edible plants. Please welcome Gregory Bundschoks. What does food security really mean?
Oops. I think I need a screen share here before we end up starting here. So most of that would need to end up happening for the speech here, I think. Can we get that changed?
Is screen sharing enabled for Gregory?
Now we got it now. Perfect. Thank you, everyone. I just need to find my speech here now. Sorry, guys. All right. I don't know why. It's not allowing. I'm so sorry, guys. I have it right here, but I'm stuck on Zoom somehow.
Select the tab beside the one you're on. I think that's it.
What, sorry?
Select the tab beside the one you're on.
Yeah.
Gregory, that's the first time this has ever happened here.
Right?
It's just embarrassing. I'm sorry, you guys.
The point is to get practice,
No,
but
I think this is the official initiation. Unless this has happened to you, this is how
are you
know
sharing your whole desktop, or are you trying to share a specific application?
No, just a specific Google Sheet that I have my presentation on.
So
Just click on the sheets.
Click on the sheet.
when you open up screen share, there are options to share the whole. Oh, there we go. Yep.
Right, there you
Got
go.
it.
This is not the right one though. That's the
You're not
unfortunate
clicking on
part.
sheet. Right, so just select the tab at the top.
I'm trying to, and it's sorry.
This is called the official induction into online presenters. I can say my entire presentation crashed. That one was fun.
I think now we got it. I'm sorry, guys.
There you go.
There we go.
Unfortunately, the timer started when you first started.
Oh, sure. Well, we'll see if we can speed it up.
Might be able to give you a break.
All right. Well,
I'm just
fellow
starting it now.
Toastmasters. At the time of a pandemic, there were a bunch of closed borders. And as a consequence of the closed borders, it became a perfect indication to me on how we kind of view our perception of edible plants and health and nutrition. Because when you have these closed borders and the mass majority of people are going to rush for toilet paper, when you can see that the shelves are basically empty as an essence of survival, it tells me that things are a little bit on the backward side as what our perception is with regards to food. And when we start looking at edible plants, I mean, it's a whole cycle of things. It's our fruits and vegetables and the phytochemistry or the chemistry of that plant, which ends up being our nutrition, which ends up being our quality of health. And that quality of health is a consequence of how we cultivate these plants. And now as we have environmental climate change, we're looking at things like sustainability and resource management. And we have nations that are looking at importing or exporting based on the population, to end up maintaining things like GDP or the aspects of debt. And the one thing in food security we're all looking at is what is available and what can we access. And as we're looking at a geopolitical polarized world right now, and the aspects of trade, this could become very difficult. And one of the things I always look at when we're discussing aspects of food security is what is the value of the health of the human being? And it seems like sometimes that gets a little bit on the lost side. Now, the unfortunate part of living in Canada is that we have 75% of our food that becomes imported into Canada. It's not fresh, it's not local, and it certainly isn't secure. And as a consequence of it going through a supply chain, it's usually wilted, frozen, moldy, with a bunch of chemicals and processes in order to end up getting it onto the shelves. And just for an example, this actually is a picture that I took. I won't say the name of the company, but it was right on the food shelves. And this is mold in the bottom of a strawberry. So it takes about 7 to 10 days for it to come up to here. And this is the result. And you're looking at about 30% of a food waste here in Canada alone. So it's a very complicated situation with a huge knowledge gap, as it says, because when you start looking at the aspects of how we eat, it comes down to how we cultivate that plant and how expensive it is to be able to create that plant. So when you look at your cost of goods sold and your expenses and your margins and your profit and the capital costs of the debt in order to grow the thing, the food plants, the technology and the smart systems, the investors who are looking to invest into it, the energy requirements of cultivation and the chemical amendments, it's a very vast problem or a very vast situation. And the reality is, as human beings, we're the sum of only two things. We're the sum of information and we're the sum of nutrition. And when you start considering the fact that 80% of the world's population doesn't actually consume fruits and vegetables for their nutrient value or not getting the proper nutrients as a consequence of that, you start to realize really quick that it's almost backwards in our psychology on how we consider and think about healthy states of being. So when you start looking at the land that has been so over-processed, it's actually starting to die. So we end up putting so much fertilizer on our plants and our crops that essentially we're running into some real problems. And it's good enough to be able to end up providing the food, but just let me pose this to you quickly. If you have, let's say, a wheat berry grown from a wheat crop, which is millions of hectares that we end up growing, considering environmental change. But if you have your bran and your germ that is taken away from that wheat berry, that's where all your nutrients are. So now you end up having these millions of hectares of wheat that ends up being grown to basically produce a refined flour that has almost no nutrient value. But the commercial aspect of that is making sure that everybody has their white bread, their hamburger buns, and their hot dog buns. And that, unfortunately, seems to be what drives the economy now when it comes to food. So once again, this huge knowledge gap, it affects how we think and it affects how we act, the state of human being. And it really is just the chemistry of life and living. So in this huge knowledge gap, we start recognizing something as the essence of proteins of what we typically are, or a large part of what we end up being is made up of proteins. And we have to take in 9 essential amino acids from different foods outside of ourselves. We can't produce those. So, and then the big debate always comes in when you're looking at proteins from like meats, or you're looking at proteins from like plants. Where do you end up getting the best bang for your buck for amino acids or your proteins? Because the proteins are the essence of even things like your hormones and how you end up thinking and feeling. So to take that a little further, one of the neurotransmitters, like the cells we have in our brain, one of them is called serotonin. And serotonin is the neurotransmitter that allows you to feel good. So the question I always ponder is, if I'm not taking in an essential amino acid, one of them being tryptophan, with tryptophan making serotonin, and serotonin makes you, regulates your mood and allows you to be happy. If you're lacking it, can you be happy? Is this the source to depression? So it's just an interesting thought to end up considering. And when we take our considerations a little bit further with regards to even school kids as the future of our human species, I think we're dealing with an incredible cell phone and social media addiction. And unfortunately, that ends up getting even a little bit worse as we end up teaching our kids a little bit younger and such. So what I've done is I've created a little bit of a program called Screen Time to Green Time, with the hope and the intent that we can start getting our kids getting their hands a little bit dirty and understanding a little bit better of their health and understanding where their food actually even comes from. And when you start looking at like a learning pyramid, most of the times as we end up remembering going into school, that if you're just sitting there in a classroom listening to a teacher, I can't remember how many times I dozed off to fall asleep. So I don't know about you. But if you start looking at the actual learning pyramid and we start understanding a little bit better on how we become cognizant of what we end up taking in, you start seeing that the lectures aren't really the way to go. But if you start introducing things into the classroom that are a practical application, you start bringing your retention rates and your learning rates up to about 75% to 90%. So then I was thinking, okay, well, how do we end up being able to teach the kids more along what is involved in their health? How do they take care of the body temple? And my business is involved in modeling the future of human health through edible plants. And as I mentioned before, it's incredibly complex when you start looking at things like epigenetics and how we relate to the external environment, or even the quality of water. If anyone is familiar with the work of Masaru Emoto, he ended up taking water from the Fujiwara Dam, and that water actually was completely polluted. And under a dark field microscope, it came out very dark and toxic and tarry, as opposed to having a blessing from a Zen Buddhist monk afterwards to end up having it come into a pure crystalline shape, which always gets me thinking on how this has an effect on how you even end up feeding plants. and a lot more variables involved too with regards to lights and even just the different aspects of the carbohydrates or the fatty acids or amino acids that are inside there to actually know how to even eat better. And I think that is a part of a large learning gap. So what my intent was, after a lot of work, and spent almost 2 years building a calculation model that determines feasibility of plant cultivation. Oh, and we're in red. So I will end here shortly by finding the actual teachers who want to end up implementing this in their class to end up being able to bring in new type of systems, whether they're growing plants on a shelf or growing them in a passive solar greenhouse, but getting them excited about that so they can end up seeing, number one, if the idea works, if the opportunity can end up happening, checking if it's feasible or not for the actual school. We plan it through project management. We get the shareholder agreement, we get the supporter investment, and then we end up making it happen. And it's a win-win that ends up being based on all stakeholders for healthier children, funding school lunch programs and such as we end up showing here, and decreasing that human health knowledge gap at a school level. And I end up closing here itself to end up finding those teachers in the schools that are looking to have a little bit of support so we can introduce those type of programs into the schooling system. My website is at www.cehort.com. My email is there as well and my phone number. And I'd love for your support and help to find some of these teachers to bring these programs into the schools. Thank you, fellow Toastmasters.
Thank you, Gregory. What a wonderful speech for your first speech here at Online Presenters. I know I am particularly interested because I think that I became gluten intolerant or celiac due to really eating poorly as a child. So you really spoke to me. Our second speaker for tonight is Mike Woodall. Mike's speech is titled, Find Your Voice. Mike is exploring the path leadership development, and this is a level 3 project labeled Increasing Knowledge, Understanding Vocal Variety. Excuse me, the primary focus of the evaluation for his speech is his vocal variety. Please welcome Mike Woodall, DTM. Find your voice.
Find your voice. As if it was freaking lost. But could it be? We actually did lose our voice. When did you lose your voice? I lost mine, like some of you, many years ago. I know I had one, a loud one. You couldn't shut me up. At 2 years old, again at 13, so bold, so fearless. We were bold and determined. We had a voice and we used it. What event took place in our lives that caused us to hold our voice inside as hostage, to protect it until it was safe to come back out, shutting up and shutting down or else? From the moment of our birth until our soul leaves its body, life, my friend, is full of pain. Conceived inside the womb in a warm, loving place where all sustenance is provided, we experience what I believe to be our first traumatic event. Suddenly, tiny body being squeezed and contorted. We gasp in desperation for that first inflow of life-giving air. We scream in terror. What pain! What fear! Our first real experience of our new world is one of shock. Now think of the other end of life. In my experience, it seems to always conclude with an exhalation, one final outflow of breath as the spirit leaves its earthly vessel. Sandwiched between our first and final breath is pain. Lots of pain. One painful experience after another. From birth through death, each of us owns a lifetime full of pain. True, there are moments when the pain subsides, moments of light, fragrance, and peace. Fragments of joy, hints of perfection. where everything in life is as it should be, where all sustenance of life is revealed. But beneath the surface of the fleeting fragments, pain's presence is insistent, unrelenting, undeniable, intertwined ever so delicately just beneath the surface, laced and weaved throughout the fine strands of the fibers within the canvas of our lives. Is it possible the best we can do is to simply acknowledge the presence of the pain within our canvas that holds the brightly colored oils of our life? Can we shift the way we look at it? Can we begin a new relationship with the pain? Is it possible to accept, then embrace those strands of pain? Is it possible to dissolve the power of the stigma, sadness, shame, or guilt of the pain we hold inside? Do we fear those strands of pain being discovered? I believe our experience of pain defines our existence in this world. It determines how we give and receive, how we perceive and interact. I believe our pain controls more than we can ever know. Perhaps our entire experience of life is filtered through the lens of pain. Some, perhaps few, can communicate their pain, and by doing so, have experienced the absolute dissolving of those debilitating fibers and the full enlightenment that follows. But most of us cannot. We keep our pain locked up, afraid to reveal it. Is it safe yet? A deep fear of the stigma of pain overwhelms us, and yet it makes me ponder. Does our guarded, undisclosed, unforgiven pain keep us from experiencing the full abundance of God's brilliant light and inexhaustible grace? Does it make us blind? Do we make goodness and genuine joy unattainable by hoarding our pain? Does harboring our pain cause us to see our reflection only dimly, as in a mirror? 1 Corinthians 13:12. Could this be what Jesus meant in the metaphor used when he talked about being blind, yet to see fully? Are we like fish in the middle of the ocean, completely unaware of the life-giving water we are submerged into? What if there's a light inside each of us, yearning to ignite, but our pain suppresses the embers from catching fire, keeping us from being the magnificent light in the world we are destined to become? This is what I know. Anyone that finds their voice, develops the courage to stand, and boldly, authentically speak about the pain that is intertwined into the fibers of the canvas of their life, will experience a full sensory awakening. When another human being truly listens to our pain and tells us, "I hear you, I get it," a door opens. We know at that moment we are not alone. We begin to feel the healing of our soul. We begin to see. We begin to step into the pinhole of light that can pierce the darkness. We begin to step into it. True happiness, the kind that emanates from your soul, is calling on you to find your voice, develop the courage to stand, and boldly speak the world you see worth having, the one you deserve, into existence. Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you, Mike, for such a thought-provoking speech. And I don't want to step on your evaluator tonight, but you said you were looking for vocal variety. Yeah, that would be like the definition of vocal variety. Awesome. So our timer for tonight is Karthika. Karthika, could you please give us a timer's report for the two speeches?
The timing report goes like this. The first speaker, Gregory, has taken 8 minutes, 25 seconds, and the second speaker, Mike, has taken 6 minutes, 59 seconds.
Thank you, Karthika. And thank you for posting in the chat as well. Now, if everyone could please take a moment to cast your vote for the best speaker of the day, which, because of the unfortunate timing, actually is Mike Woodall. Go ahead and do that.
I knew I could win one.
So please send your vote to, gosh, I think it's Carolina. And we now move on to table topics. Table topics is the impromptu speaking portion of the meeting. Tonight's table topics master is Andre Smolenko. So I'm sure we're in for a Halloween treat. Please welcome Andre to the virtual stage.
Thank you very much, Kim, my fellow online presenters, and we have a guest today. Now is one of my favorite portions of the evening, table topics. Of course, and it's all about Halloween celebration, ghost trick-or-treating, you name it. I'll just explain very briefly. I'm sure we all know how it works. You have a question, you have a picture, or anything like that, and you need to speak off the cuff, impromptu, answering that question clearly, briefly, and succulently, according to the Toastmasters. Therefore, within 1 to 2 minutes, you should produce an outstanding speech with an opening, with the middle part, and of course the ending. And I have a number of Halloween-related questions that I'm going to ask you. So anyone can be called upon to answer this question. Here we go. So what we're going to do, I'm going to read you a question and then I call one of you to answer it. As simple as that. And again, Madam Timer, is the timing for table topics is 1 to 2 minutes. Here we go. The first question I'm going to ask is, what's the best or worst prank you have ever played on someone? What is the best or the worst prank you have ever played on someone? And this question goes to Carolina Ramirez, please.
Thank you, Andrew, for your question. Like 20 years ago, I would say, I used to have a friend near the neighborhood, around the neighborhood. And I remember that she was having a party for Halloween, and we decided to spread in her face some, I cannot remember the word in English. Let me check. Flour in the face, and it was just a joke, but the flour entered in the eye, and she started to cry in the middle of the party. And she was using makeup because of Halloween, and she had to wash her face, and she started to cry. And everybody in her party was very worried about her because she couldn't open her eyes. And we thought that the joke was going to be fun or funny, but unfortunately, it ended in a disaster prank because we ruined the party and the fun for the host of that party. Back to you, Andre.
Oh, well, thank you very much, Karina. I knew you had something mischievous in you, and now you just told us the story about the pranking old poor lady and crying. Right, and we moving on to the second table topics. And the question is, what is your favorite horror movie character and why? And this question goes to Farah. Farah, what is your favorite horror movie character and why?
Thank you for a wonderful question. Believe or not, I do not like horror movies. And I do not like Halloween. So as a young child, I had a nightmare, and I'll say Halloween is reminding me that it's celebrating devil. That's how I'll say. So I do not like Halloween. I don't like the decoration. I don't like horror movies. And I did get nightmare from watching Blair Witch Project, even though there is no indicator of ghost or any character indicator about being evil or killing people. I just do not like horror movies. And so I'll say nobody is my favorite. And back to you.
Well, thank you very much, Farah, for your honest answer. I was hoping people would just lie and would come up with all sorts of stories explaining why they like that character or why they like that horror movie. At the same time, we have an honest member with Online Presenters. Congratulations, us all. And I believe you should be inducted today, Farah. Am I right?
Yes.
Oh, so we
Yes,
have an
I am.
honest member, perhaps with induction today. Right, and the next question I've prepared.
So going back to that, if you're ready for that, Farah, we can do that right after the table topics. Are we good with that, Andre? Yay.
Well, I would love to see Farah being inducted. Absolutely.
Me too. Awesome.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Excellent. And the next question I'm going to ask, I'll keep my fingers crossed and I will expect the honest answer as well from our members or guests. So what is your favorite Halloween candy? What is your favorite Halloween candy? And this question goes to Kirk.
Walking by the corner convenience store, I saw this incredible aisle. Never in my life have I ever seen a place so haunted with chocolate-looking candy bars. It was then that I knew I was no longer on Earth. Instead, I was on Mars. Mr. Table Topics Master, Madam Chair, and fellow Toastmasters, I fell in love with the Mars bar. When I landed on that planet, I realized that there was no turning back. My days on Earth were not only numbered, but they were calculated into the space shuttle's actual kilometers away from Earth. And they were transported not only to the gadgets and the great imaginative universe of Star Wars, but they were captivated by Captain Kirk himself on the Star Trek space shuttle. When we arrived, we saw Spock, and he saluted us with 21 high fives. We were so impressed, we knew he was a Navy SEAL and a retired Army general under Lieutenant Eisenhower. When we started to have breakfast, we realized there was no time left for us to simply just munch on pancakes. We had to begin delving into the mountain of Mars bars that were right in front of us. Sure, there were goblins and goons around, but none of us had fear. We realized that this was a quest that we had to endure, and that we did. Back to you, Mr. Table Topics Master.
Wow, what an endurance during the test, Kirk. What a brilliant table topics, and of course, honest, with not even a glimpse of imagination. Thank you for that. Madam Modern Table Topics Master. No, so I'm a Table Topics Master. So Toastmaster of the evening, Kim Limin. I just want to ask if we have time for one more, or we need to wrap up.
Oh gosh, I wasn't paying attention. I don't know, because if we're going to do the member induction ceremony, we have that too. So what does everybody think? Because I am not looking at the timing on it right now.
Right. Then I'll just probably call it, my own vote. Let's take a time out so we can induct perhaps Farah properly and spend a bit more time doing other important things, even though table topics is one of my favorite parts of the evening. However, but thank you very much for those brave souls who came up and answered those questions. And Kritika, our timer, would you be able to tell us the timing for table topic speakers? We had 3 today. So I can see all of them qualified. Brilliant. What I'm going to do, I'm going to post a link to the special voting tool we have in the chat. So please click on the link in the chat and cast your votes for your favorite table topics speaker. It looks like my role is over for now, and I'll pass this virtual stage to Kim Limin, our Toastmaster of the night.
Thank you so much, Andre. What a great job with the Halloween table topics. And Farah, for you, I ditched the whole witch hat thing. So we are ready for your new member induction. So here we go. On behalf of Online Presenters Toastmasters, it is my duty and privilege to induct Farah into our club. And I'm sorry, I don't have your last name right in front of me. Okay. This is an important occasion for both Farah and for our club. As experienced Toastmasters, I am so sorry. This individual will enrich us as we strive to enrich her in a spirit of sharing and enjoyment. Together, we expand our effectiveness as dynamic leaders, presenters, and communicators. Farah, please wait until I call on you to affirm your commitment to the Toastmaster promise. So here we go. Oh, sorry, let me get to the right scene. There we go. So, in the presence of fellow online presenters, do you pledge to attend meetings regularly and prepare for each assignment, to actively participate in club activities, to evaluate others in a constructive, positive manner, to build open, friendly relationships with our fellow members, and to bring other new members into the club so that they can gain the benefits of Toastmasters? Farah, please unmute and say, I do.
I do.
To the current members of Online Presenters, I remind you of your pledge to support Farah in her quest for self-development, to provide her with positive, helpful evaluations, to maintain a friendly, supportive atmosphere, and to make her Online Presenters Toastmasters membership a rewarding and fulfilling experience. Congratulations, Farah, and welcome to Online Presenters. Attendees, please unmute and give Farah a big round of applause.
Welcome,
Welcome, Farah.
Welcome.
Welcome to the club.
It might be a little too scary for you, though. I'm telling you.
Thank
That's
you
okay.
so much. So our next portion of the meeting is the evaluations. I'm trying to get to my final, I'll just leave it at that one. So our general evaluator for tonight is Graham Carnes, our wonderful president, coming to us from a cruise ship. So he will lead the evaluation portion of the meeting, and please take it away, Graham.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster of the day, and whoa, from on board the Grand Princess. And it is not quite Dia Stella, Day of the Dead here, but it's close enough, and the sugar skulls behind me. My job as General Evaluator is to lead the evaluation portion of the meeting. Now, We're all Toastmasters, so we all know the importance of evaluation. Let's, in fact, get straight to the evaluations for this evening. Now, I have here the agenda for tonight, and I just need to now scroll to the appropriate section. And we need to go to our first evaluator. Our first evaluator of tonight, I gather, is David Carr. It says so on the agenda. So, David, would you please present your evaluation of speaker number 1 this evening? Please welcome evaluator 1, David Carr.
All right. Thank you, Graham. Thank you, fellow club members, and especially Gregory. Glad to have this opportunity to evaluate you and to have you as part of the club. First of all, welcome. Now, I think this is your first speech to us as a club. You haven't done an icebreakery kind of speech, but you gave us a speech about something that's important and that you think is important. And it was a good, serious, educational, knowledgeable speech. We could see that you knew what you were talking about. Since it was your first time that I know that you've given a full speech, I think you might have done a little bit more of scene setting and also just in terms of the topic, even if you'd spoken to us before, of why this topic is of interest to you and how it connects with you, whether it's just on a personal level or on a professional level. Now, somewhere in the middle, you did mention that you have a business that is connected with this idea and with trying to promote better habits. I'm not quite sure, what the business framework is. I actually took some time to look you up on LinkedIn to try and understand, but you obviously have an academic interest, a serious research interest in the topic. So it's not just a passing interest. So that's all good. Now, one of the things that we are in this club for is to practice using the medium, working with the medium. And I do think there are some things that you could work on there. Now, I don't necessarily say that you need to use fancy screen effects, but this is just what I was seeing as you were presenting. One thing is actually, you're not showing your slides as a slideshow. You're showing us in the authoring environment. It's sometimes called the slide sorter view of PowerPoint or of, I think this is Google Slides. But the point is just that you're not showing us your images full screen. You're not showing them at their best. However, you did actually choose good images, like this one that shows the kids piping up and paying attention, showing the concept that you had as part of your speech of needing to create some real engagement rather than just dryly presenting facts in a classroom setting. So that was all good. The stuff at the very beginning about just futzing with Zoom settings, I mean, that's going to come with practice. And we've all had the experience of sometimes preparing something really elaborate and we want it to be impressive, and it's not quite, we don't get there quite as smoothly as we'd like to. So I welcome you to this adventure, and I look forward to your next speech. This is the one that you do twice at some point, so maybe we'll get to hear it again.
That's me. There you go. Sorry about that. Thank you, David. Thank you for that evaluation. And now our second evaluator tonight is Jim, providing an evaluation of Mike's presentation. Jim, it is all yours.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. And my lord, if that's the correct recognition, Mike Woodall. Mike, I have been so looking forward to hearing you speak. I've heard you in other roles here at Toastmasters, at Online Presenters, and I've enjoyed your being Toastmaster and the other roles, I wanted to hear you speak. You did not let me down. I like to evaluate 3 different components of a presentation: content, the audio portion, and the visual portion. And I'll do those very quickly. Content, you knocked it out of the park. This was an exceptionally well-written presentation. You have it was very well structured. We could follow what you were talking about very easily. You have a very strong vocabulary. I like it. You rival Graham Carnes, who is, I think, the all-time master of a vocabulary. In Birth, you talked about gasping in frustration, gasping in desperation, that's it, and screamed in terror. I mean, these are phrases that you just don't ordinarily use, and they were so evocative of what the birth process was. It was great. I love that. Moving on, the audio portion, verbally, this was terrific. You said you wanted to know how you did vocal variety. You are terrific. Your vocal variety was great. You are conversational, but it's not a lax conversationality. It's a very careful conversational presentation. Again, Graham is the only person that I can really write off, compare it to. You just do that so well. The third area, visual, this was great also, with one caveat. Your lighting was great. I'll come back to that in a moment. Your gestures were very good. We couldn't see, you were so close to the camera that we couldn't see much in the way of gestures, but they were there and they were natural. They were congruent with what you were saying. So they worked very, very well. That was good. Didn't depend on it. I have one suggestion for you, and let's see if I can, I'm still figuring out OBS. It does work. Okay. Your ring lights. It gave you good lighting on your presentation. Let's see if I can make that a little bit bigger. There we go. But notice that it reflects off of your glasses in a distracting manner. It almost looks like you're wearing a second set of spectacles there. So if you could find a different way of having your ring lighting, I'm hidden now. Yeah, I'm back. If you can find a different position for your ring lighting so that you are well lit, but nevertheless you don't have the little circles reflecting off of your glasses, this will be a peerless presentation, and I'm really looking forward to it. I only have one more thing to say, and that is, of course, ghoulish, Mr. General Evaluator.
That's, I think, called retrofitting the word of the day into your presentation. Thank you very much, Jim. Can I ask the timekeeper for the times of the 2 evaluations this evening?
Definitely. Evaluated 1, David has taken 3 minutes, 30 seconds. Evaluated 2, Jim Barber has taken 3 minutes, 17 seconds.
Both of them eligible to be voted for Best Evaluator of the Night. Andre will put a link into the chat so you can choose who to vote on as the best evaluator of the evening. Time now for me to move on to the other functionaries. I do love that word, functionaries. For example, it would be quite ghoulish of me not to find out from the grammarian how we did in terms of grammar tonight. So, who was our grammarian tonight? Says grammarian. That would be Andrew Byrne. Yours, Andrew.
Thank you very much. Everybody try their best to be ghoulish and to be surprising, along with the theme of the night for Halloween. I think that I didn't hear any really outlandish grammar, certainly nothing inappropriate. I think as a club, this role of evaluation for grammar, it gets harder and harder and harder. Thank God we have the odd counter role so that something can be said about our speakers. Back to you.
Thank you, Andrew. Now, the watcher is the visual equivalent of the grammarian's role. So let's go and see how our watcher saw us this evening. Joni.
There were no visual crutches to be noted today. However, I will say that I did get an eyeful from our Toastmaster of the day with her background. She needs to give us a tip of the day on how she does that, transitioning into the induction, as well as all of the bats being ghoulish and flying in her background. Also, special mention to Carolina, Andre, and Graham for getting involved, like me, in the theme of the day. Big shout out to Jim, who is actually in a fun Halloween costume, which is in theme with his name. Overall, it was an eyeful, not completely ghoulish, but still fun. Back to you, our general evaluator.
Thank you, Joni, for watching us this evening. You mentioned Carolina and her background, which is fabulous. What you didn't say was that Carolina was watching us through those eyes and listening to us through those ears of the jack-o'-lanterns to see how many ums and ahs we had. Our counter, Carolina, how did we go?
We did a very good job. I counted just some ums, and so to Gregory, myself, and David. Not many, just a few. But our favorite grant is and so be careful with that. Back to you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Carolina. Now, our chat monitor tonight, I know we have a chat monitor. I heard somebody say they were volunteering to take on the role of chat monitor, but I didn't jot it down. Was that Gregory?
It was. I did have the role for chat monitor today. And in going through the chats, it was somewhat uneventful, mostly the aspects of what we had for our votes, our times for speaking and evaluations, and the comment on having Farah inducted into the group. And as I've mentioned, there wasn't really too terribly much else with regards to that, except for the preliminary openings and hellos, and that's pretty much all we had in the chat counter for today, or the chat monitor today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gregory, and thank you for taking on that role as well as being speaker, because I know that it was I know that you put a lot of work into that presentation, and having to do both at the same time would be challenging, and I thank you for doing so. Are there any other functionaries who I have not yet called upon? Is there anything else we need to know from the timekeeper? Nope. In that case, let me give the general evaluation of the meeting. Part of the role of the general evaluator is to evaluate that which has not already been evaluated. I'll talk about the Toastmaster of the day in a moment. Before I do, let me talk about our two individual evaluators tonight. We had David with his evaluation, and I wrote down warm and welcoming with suggestions to improve, but I also said that I would like to see more praise being offered. One of the things that we need to bear in mind when we are evaluating is not only are we giving the people that we are evaluating suggestions for how to improve, but what we should also be doing is pointing at the things that they did well and telling them why they should continue to do those things. Because if we don't get told what we're doing right, then we might think, oh, well, they didn't even comment on that, I'll never do that again. And sometimes we as speakers lose that feedback. So if I may suggest to all evaluators, don't just look for suggestions for improvement, but the praise is important, not just to make the speaker feel good, but so that the speaker knows that works and I will continue to do that. Something, by the way, which Jim did. Jim gave some really good praise and he was, now I'm trying to read my notes here and it's not much light because I've turned the background lights off because there are mirrors behind me and there was this incredible repeating Graham. Jim, good praise, good to break the evaluation into three parts. I thought that was particularly effective tonight to say, I am going to talk about this, this, and this, and then to do that. That's we've all heard the triptych, tell them what you're going to tell them, and tell them what you told them. Well, this was a perfect example of that. I'm going to talk about this, then and this is what I have told you. So well done that. One of the things that I liked about Jim's evaluation was his comment on the lights. And that's an observation which all of us with glasses sometimes need to be reminded of, that we, because we are wearing glasses, need to be aware of our lighting is coming from. And I also really thought that, that Jim gave some good, strong recommendations and praise. Might I suggest, though, that Jim he was talking about vocabulary. There is a word which has become a great part of Jim's vocabulary, I've noticed, and he greatly uses it a great number of times when he is being greatly enthusiastic about somebody. And the word, of course, is great. Look for other words. We often, as evaluators, that was great. You did that. That was great. I really like. Find another word, because great loses its impact if we overuse it. So that would be my suggestion for Jim. The topics tonight from Andre, good set of topics. I know he had lots more topics available, and I know that he had thought about fitting them into the theme of the meeting. One observation I would make, Andre, and this is probably not fair given that English is not your first language, but you asked us to speak succulently, which means with moisture, and rather than succinctly, which means short and sharp. I just found it amusing. I'm sorry. Our first table topic speaker on pranks was Carolina. One of the things that Carolina did, and this is something I would suggest we all do with table topics, is she chose a personal story which did not reflect all that well on her. Although I would say that by talking about how she had learned how these things can go wrong, that probably did say something that reflected well on Carolina. But I really enjoyed that personal story. Farah not liking horror movies and not liking Halloween is a perfectly reasonable position to take. She made the point. She didn't hector us by saying this is actually not something that we should be doing, but she made the point, I feel uncomfortable with this. I just thought I would mention that. And she made the green light, which was all that was required. So well done there, Farah. And I'm not going to. Has everybody voted for the best table topic, by the way? If you have not yet voted for the best table topic, please go and do so right now, because I'm going to say I love the table topic that we had about candy from Mars. I thought that was a really delightful diversion, a way of taking the table topic away from the subject and staying within the main theme, but giving us something completely out of left field. So well done. A suggestion, if you're going to be doing table topics, particularly if you're going to be doing table topics in a competition, sometimes thinking outside the box, going somewhere completely unexpected can be a great technique to take. General observations about the meeting. It might be useful if we were to test the screen share to make sure that it was available before the meeting. There have been a couple of meetings, 2 out of the last 3 meetings, I think people have had to say, oh, can I please have screen share now? It might be a good suggestion if we can make sure that screen share, for example, is available before the meeting begins. Let me talk about the Toastmaster of the day. Some amazingly bad puns. They were delightful. I'm, as the club's doyen of dad jokes, I have to say, Kim, some of those were worse than my worst. And so that is high praise indeed coming from me. I loved the way that Kim ran her Toastmaster session tonight. I really enjoyed both of the inductions. Now, again, they were a little disorganized because of the switching in and out of one set of backgrounds to another. They didn't quite go as seamlessly as Kim would have liked, but the fact that Kim had put so much work into this, I think, is worthy of praise. And I am quite sure that both of our new members tonight felt genuinely welcomed to the club, as they should, because you are genuinely welcome to the club. And I thought that the inductions were really well handled. That is my general evaluation for the day. I now hand control of the meeting back to the Toastmaster of the day to find out the winner of the best speaker and best evaluator topics. Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you, Graham. And I hand it right back to the vote counter to give us the winners of the day.
Thank you, Kim. Right, the drum roll, let's get ready. So the best evaluator tonight is David F. Carr. Congratulations, David, for the best evaluator. Best table topics is not surprise at all, goes to our guest, Kirk. Yay! Best table topics. Congratulations, Kirk. And best speaker, Mike Woodall. Congratulations, Mike. Back to you, Kim.
Thank you so much. So thank you so much for what you did tonight as vote counter, and thank you so much as general evaluator, Graham. I always get such nice insights from you on your evaluations. And if you guys only knew how close I was to not being able to do this, I was literally adding things. I just found out today how to do it where you can't see me adding things as the meeting was starting. So anyway, thank you so much. I'm glad it kind of went off like I knew what I was doing. So I am going to close with a few more dad jokes. When is it bad luck to be followed by a cat? The answer is when you're a mouse. Oh, black cat. Oh, I kind of blew that joke. Sorry. So let me go ahead and do another one better. Where do ghosts like to travel on vacation? That would be the Dead Sea. And lastly, why didn't the scarecrow eat at dinner? 'Cause he was already stuffed. Back to you, President Graham Carnes.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you very much. I mean, the scarecrow could have gone out to dinner with the skeleton because the skeleton had nobody else. Sorry. Okay, no more bad dad jokes, no more Halloween jokes, no more any of those. Thank you, everyone, for your contributions this evening. I hope you've enjoyed the meeting. I've really enjoyed it. I think that we had a couple of great speeches. We had some fabulous table topics. As I've already mentioned, I thought the evaluations were fine. Good role playing by everybody tonight. Time now for me to call for comments from Kirk, our guest. Now, Kirk, this is not your first rodeo here. How did you find the meeting today?
Considering that the horses have not left the barn yet to go trick-or-treating, I have certainly been to a few rodeos, and this one, I must say, is quite mesmerizing because it spanned all the way from the gorgeous province of Alberta all the way down to the plains of Indiana and back over to the underworld of Australia. That is quite an excursion. I appreciated the structure of the actual meeting, the insights from all the different speeches, and the wonderful way that Kim coordinated all the different transitions throughout the meeting. I felt welcomed. I'm glad to be here. Back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Kirk. And you would always, of course, be most welcome back. And I'm quite sure that we can send you a membership form if you'd like to join us, because you would be a valuable addition to us. So anyway, that will almost certainly happen. I can see Kim saying, oh yes, it'll be coming to you. Thank you very much for coming along. We have no other guests now because we have 2 new members. No, you don't get to say guest comments anymore, you two, but as our newly inducted members, Gregory or Farah, would you like to say anything in being welcomed to the club? We have about 60 seconds.
Say quickly that it's
Thank you for letting me into your club. I'm enjoying every minute of it, and I'm just glad to see everyone today. And thank you. Back to you.
Thank you. And Gregory, you were going to say?
I was just saying a similar type of thing. I mean, this seems like a good place to be able to learn the skills that I'm going to need to learn. So I thank everyone for allowing me to be part of the club and voting me in. So looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, that is top of the. We are really glad to have you both indeed. That is top of the clock. I will now officially declare the meeting closed. Thank you, everyone, for